Hello lovely painter people and welcome back to the studio here in Northumberland on yet another coronavirus lockdown day. Oh, when will it end? Anyway, today we're going to do an acrylic painting, and as you can see I've got a rather raggy pre-wash of raw sienna there. I say raggy because it doesn't matter what it looks like, as long as it's dried and the whole surface is covered. That's like a backdrop to your painting. And what I'm going to do for this one today, is a picture that I took about 3 days ago in the woods just at the end of the village here where I live. There's Frank's bottom, which probably won't make the painting, but there we go. But before any drawing whatsoever, I'm going to put a sky wash on. And so, as I say, it's acrylics, and I use System 3 acrylics, Dale O'Reilly System 3. Look at the state of that. It's a bit like my watercolour palette. Stay wet palette. If you haven't got one, get yourself one, because they just save you so much paint. You know how acrylic dries really quite quickly in your palette, and you can't use it. You have to throw it away afterwards. These, they just keep it nice and moist. And I've got a bottom film there, film and paper underneath, which looks like blotting paper or a sponge. I wet that, put the other paper on top, and then squeeze the paint out on top. The only one I've just replenished is my titanium white, because I'd run out. But as you can see, all the others are well used, but look, just ready to paint with. And it will keep them moist for weeks and weeks and weeks. You never have to throw any paint away. So it saves you quite a lot of money actually. So what I'm going to do to start with the sky wash, hardly any water in this whatsoever. Just a damp brush, and I've got cobalt blue and quite a bit of titanium white into the blue, like so. A little bit of water now, just to move it around a little bit more white, and just literally bash it on. Just going underneath my eagle lip. Now, as I come further down, just add more white to the mix on the canvas. And the brush I'm using, my 1.5 inch flat wash brush, which is, you can't really see the name on there because it's well used. It's an Aquafine watercolour brush, Dale O'Reilly Aquafine. And I love these brushes. As you know, I paint them with them all the time, with my watercolours as well. This is just the equivalent set of what I use in my watercolours. But this is my acrylic set. A little bit more white. And I'm coming about 2/3 the way down here. And there's going to be so much woodland on top of this sky that you're not really going to see a lot of sky showing through. It's just a bit of a backdrop really. A bit more down, a bit more blue. And that'll come far enough down. As I say, I don't need to mess about with this sky because there's not very much of it showing. But if you had a different kind of a landscape and you wanted lots of clouds, I'll show you how to do one. Just wash my brush out. Just titanium white, and we'll have a bit there. And then a little bit of Payne's grey into my blue and white mix. A bit more Payne's grey. Payne's grey, I never use Payne's grey in watercolours, but in acrylics I love it. It's a nice way of making different greys and black and darkening other colours. There. What a mess. But now, a bit of digital art. Just merge it all in. So simple. A little bit more white, I think. that is how easy clouds can be. And of course this is all still good and wet. Very, very simple clouds. As I say, I'm not bothered about clouds in this one. I'm just showing you how to do it for other landscapes where you do want clouds. Easy as that. Now, I need to let all that dry and then I'll do the drawing. Actually, no, I won't. I'll do it a slightly different way this time. Because I've got a big woodland, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a little bit of raw umber, there, and a tiny touch of burnt sienna into it. Raw umber I use very much the same way as I do with my watercolours. Raw umber is the only brown I carry. So I've got raw umber as a nice brown. Stick burnt sienna into it. I've got burnt umber. Take my raw umber and blue. I've got sepia. Put all three together, raw umber, blue and burnt sienna. I've got Van Dyke brown. With my 3/4 inch brush now, again an aquafine brush, I'm going to pop a bit of that in there. And the reason why I changed my mind on this one is because my sky's all good and wet. As I'm popping this on, I'm picking up the lighter colour underneath, which will just lighten it straight away. This looks a mess. It'll be right. Trust me, I'm an artist. Or as my mother said, never trust an artist. And that basically is going to give me the impression of a load of trees through the big woodland that I paint in the foreground. It will all become evident. And I'm bringing that down to where I ended the sky. Now, just with my finger again, tap on, get rid of any hard bits that I don't want. And now, just as if I'd just finished my sky, I'm going to let that all dry before I do my drawing on top of there. There. Now, this isn't totally dry. More or less, but not totally. And all I need to do is kind of like map out where I want the main clumps of trees and what I want to change, if anything. And I'm going to start off here with some trees. These are all mainly fir trees. It's a plantation forest. And as I say, the wood is just outside my village here. It's about a quarter of a mile away. And the dogs love it. So I've got a few bits here. And these are the important trees in this painting, for me anyway, because these are the ones that are going to capture a lot of light. Nice and tall and fairly straight. The pencil that I'm using is my normal, either IKEA or Screwfix. It doesn't make any difference really. For nothing pencils. There, that'll do for those. Now I've got quite a bit of light coming out here, and then the path, such as it is, it's a grassy track really, coming out there. And about here, I've got some normal deciduous trees. Deciduous? That's a word for you. Just a few bits. And I'm pressing on fairly hard with the pencil here. That will more or less do for the drawing, to be honest. That's all I need. I'm going to do to start with is darken the base of that distance stuff a little bit. And I've got Payne's Grey here, and I'm using my 3/4 inch aquafine brush. Again, you can't really see, but it's an aquafine brush. And a little bit of Payne's Grey and deep violet. These System 3 colours are really lovely, yummy colours, thick, smashing colours. And all I'm doing is I'm splitting my 3/4 inch brush there and stippling on a little bit. It's deep violet, or as I call it, violent violet, because it is a very strong colour. I've only got a little bit of the violet into the Payne's Grey there, just stippling on. And then at the top of that, dab in, soften it in slightly. A bit more of that up here. In this one I'm going to have the light coming from the left, because it actually is in the picture as well. Now a little bit of burnt sienna as well. Again, splitting the brush. Just building up a few colours in the distance. All these will take their place in the painting once I get the foreground in. That makes sense to me. Now, still with my 3/4 inch brush, I've just got a little bit of raw umber. And I'll just bring a few bits up. Now obviously I'm still slightly wet on here, so if I pick up light paint that's underneath, I'll just keep dipping into the paint to darken it more. Nice and straight. Just tapping on. Sharp edge of the brush. Such a useful brush, a 3/4 inch flat. Because these as well, because they're so hardy and hard wearing, I can split them and get these effects. And I go back into the water and it flattens out again. Goes back to shape. Now, a little bit of Payne's Grey just by itself. Bit of that. And I'm coming in on the right hand side on some of these. Again, because the paper's still wet, the canvas is still wet underneath from those undercolours that I put on, I'm picking up little bits of lighter paint. So if you want to keep it dark, just keep dipping into the paint. A few bits over here. Obviously this Payne's Grey, I'm putting primarily down the right hand side of some of those sticks that I've put in, because the light is coming from the left. And a few bits down there. Notice I've done portrait format. For a scene like this, portrait format is really quite nice. You've just got to make your trees tall enough. Now, just invent a few bits here and there. I've still got Payne's Grey, just Payne's Grey. And just a few more sticks here and there. Make some of them a little bit weaker. And now you can see where that backdrop that I put in when I did the sky, all this mush here, comes into play because you're looking through to that lot. And now it's time for a little bit more detail into these trees that I drew. Okay, now to, like I said, slightly more detailed trees. Those in the centre. And those are the ones that are going to catch some really strong light. I've changed my rigger brush, again, aquafine brush, number 4 rigger, this one. The rigger's a lovely bouncy flicky brush. But if you want a broader stroke, just press on harder, look, so that the brush spreads a little bit. And then as I come further up, lift the brush off. See? Pull those up. And these as well are going to be quite a bit taller. Again, push the brush on so it spreads and lift the brush off as I come further up to get a thinner stroke. Keeping the raw umber a little bit stronger. And nice and straight. Steady hand from Gail on the camera work there. It's only when I say something funny eventually that the camera starts to wiggle a little bit. So I won't say anything funny. Now, into that lot, I'm going to have some Payne's Grey. And again, keeping the Payne's Grey nice and strong. And this is coming down the right hand side again. And it's putting the other colours on. That gives the trees their shapes a more of a rounded shape by getting the dark to one side and catching the light on the other side, which I shall put on in a minute. Just like in watercolours, I only use 4 brushes. The 1.5 inch flat that I put the sky wash on with. My 3/4 inch flat, which you've just seen, my rigger brush, and in a minute my number 8 round brush. Same 4 brushes as I use in the watercolours. A few bits here now. And as soon as I put things across here, twigs coming out here, you see how it brings those further forward from this lot that I did before. Like that. Now, Naples yellow next. Naples yellow, lovely and light. And I'm going to have the Naples yellow strongest up here. And of course this is going to the left hand side of the trees. Now see what a difference that makes. Maple yellow is such a lovely colour, it lifts everything. nice and strong up here at the top. I love acrylics because they're so forgiving. If you make a mistake in acrylics, just paint over it. If the whole thing goes wrong, wait for it to dry, then paint white paint over it, you've got a new canvas. So forgiving, I love them. And they're good for painting on paper as well. Watercolour paper. Now, I'm going to have a bit more twiggy bits, technical term there, a few twiggy bits here and there, look. These are just sticks coming out. You don't want too many flicky, bouncy, twisted twigs. Have them straight. More or less. Now, what I'm going to do now is where I've got some of these sharp edges here, where the yellow meets the dark, on the thicker parts, just stroke down, look, merge. See? And again, stroke down and merge. Now, time for a little bit of foliage on those. And just like in my watercolours, I use hooker's green in acrylics as well. There's some hooker's green and burnt sienna. Plenty of burnt sienna to that. Because the foliage on fir trees is normally quite a dark, rich green. So with the corner of the brush, 3/4 inch flat, I'm just stippling them. And you'll notice if you go through these thick plantation forests, quite often the trees haven't got much foliage down towards the bottom. So I'm going to predominantly put this in the top bits. This green's going to change again in a minute as well. I'm going to have several shades of green in this. Now, a little bit of paint spray into that green mix that I've just finished with. Get some paint spray there. Put that in there so it's even darker. See that? I'm just dabbing. Again, mainly this is going kind of like underneath clumps and to the right hand side. And that's because I want a lot of strong light to the left. So again, with Naples yellow, and still with my 3/4 inch flat brush, plenty of Naples yellow in there. It's a bit sharp edged at the minute, but it won't be. Because now I'm going to go in with my finger again and just tap, look. Don't rub it, tap it. See what a big difference that makes. Makes a big difference in Naples yellow. Now, my foliage has settled a little bit. I'm still on with these here. I've changed my number 8 round brush this time. A little bit more Payne's grey here and there, just to darken areas underneath the clumps of foliage. See? Like so. A couple of bits in here as well. That just helps to pronounce not only the tree trunk but the foliage as well, by putting a dark bit underneath it where it meets the tree trunk. There. There. Now, whilst I'm in with my round brush, I'm going to have a few more tree trunks, quite a few more tree trunks. I'm putting more water into my Payne's grey, and we're just going to have a load of dark bits. This is very scary. Just big broad strokes of Payne's grey. And the beauty of acrylics, you see, is don't worry about this, because once you've got the dark on, you can then put the light on top of the dark. And this painting now that I've got those out of the way, this painting now very quickly comes together. These are bigger and in the foreground, or they will be. And yes, I'm going through some of the other trees that I've painted before, not to worry. Because the whole idea is that you look through these big ones towards the other stuff in the background. And yes, over here now. And you notice, look, I'm starting off with the point of the brush. As I come further down, push the brush in more so it spreads and gives me a broader stroke. See? Like so. Number 8 round brush. Number 8 is a really good size. It's not too big like a number 10 would be, and it's not too small like a number 6 would be. I've got quite a lot of paint on this brush. When I say that, I mean not too much water into it. And we'll have another one. I've got a tree here, which I drew earlier, which is a normal tree. Not a fir tree, I mean. Will I have one there? Yes, a small one. No, I won't. Yes, I will. Indecision. Make your mind up, Evans. As I say, there's not too much water in this brush. Perhaps neat paint. A bit more here. I'm just being careful not to stick my hand on those. Now, more colours. I'm starting off with a little bit of raw umber. Just raw umber. And I just basically want to get more colours into these tree trunks so that they're not flat and dead. So a bit of raw umber here and there. Look, and I'm just tapping on colours here and there. Just a few bits. Some up there as well. And a few bits down on this one. See, it's still dark, but it just changes the colour slightly. Leaving bits of just Payne's grey showing here and there. few bits coming down. Now, burnt sienna, in a similar manner. Just burnt sienna. And a few bits. This will warm it up quite a bit as well, actually. Bit of burnt sienna. I should be walking through these woods tonight. With the dogs totally disobeying me, as they do. You see how that warms up a little bit? It keeps it dark still, but it's warmer. Burnt sienna is such a lovely, rich colour. Big thick lump there, it's nice. I love painting with acrylics outdoors on location because you can paint very much like an oil painting, but of course you haven't got sticky canvases to try and transport home afterwards in the back of the car because they dry that much quicker. Now, a little bit of yellow, I almost said yellow ochre, a little bit of Naples yellow. And the majority of this, look, going into the top. Like so. Let the light in at the top of the picture, coming through the woods. I'm going to have some further down as well, but it's big thick bits at the top. Now coming further down a little bit. Good, thick and gloopy. I've been on one of these, well, I've been on many times, these factory tours that the paint manufacturers like Dale Rowney do, and you see the paint coming in its raw state after it's been milled and everything. You see it coming through the rollers, and it's got that kind of look that you want to get hold of it, and eat it. It's thick and yummy, gorgeous. If you ever get the chance to go onto a factory tour at Dale Rowney, go. Well worth it. It's fascinating to see all the pigments being done. Bit of raw Naples yellow there as well. Now, again, with my finger, look, I'm just going to stroke down and merge slightly. Again, digital art. The old ones are the best. You see what lovely colours that makes now on the canvas. And a little tickle on those as well. But everything's all still wet and merging. All lovely and soggy. And I shall have a few twigs coming out of those now. So back to my rigger brush. And Payne's Grey. And you see how that, like a twig coming across there, look, how that cuts those further back as well, even though they're strong in colour. If you get any lumps that you don't like I did there, just stroke it with your finger. And again over here. Can you see what I was talking about, how quickly this starts and comes together now once you get the big ones in? There. Now for this deciduous tree that I drew in the foreground here. And I've got raw umber and Payne's grey mixed, and with my rigger brush, look, I'm just starting to do a few squiggly bits coming around there. Payne's grey, raw umber. And a bit here. Now, when it goes across that one, I'm going to put more Payne's grey into the mix, see? So that now comes in front of that one. Now again, a little bit of maple yellow. Still with my rigger brush. There, just catching a little bit of light on the left hand side there. And again, back in with my finger. Just a few tickly bits. Now it's time for a lot of foliage throughout the whole thing. And so I'm going back to my 3/4 inch brush, and I'm going to have 2 mixes of greens going on here. Maybe even 3. Starting off with hooker's green and a lot of raw sienna there, look. Hell of a lot, look at that. Another big thick chunk. What I'll do to start with is just get some bits in here and there. Again, you see how useful that brush is, using it on its side this time. And that's very bright at the minute, but it won't be. A few bits through here as well. Now, a little bit of hooker's green and burnt sienna. I had that before there. See? Just a few touches. And some of those here as well. And now, actually I'll have a little bit down there as well. And now, a little bit of Payne's grey into that hooker's green and burnt sienna mix. But it's nice and dark. Like that. Not like that, just like that. And again, stiffly on in the bottom, leaving the undercolour shine through in between as well. Now I've got this on this deciduous tree here. So this time I've got hooker's green and raw sienna again, with the side of the brush, look. And now Naples yellow. Capturing light there, look. A little bit coming through there. Again, back in with my finger, just tap. Remember, don't rub it, dab it. Technical term, squash some lumps. There. To the top of the painting there, again with my 3/4 inch brush, I'm just going to scrape on some dark bits of foliage there coming in from the top. But I want it fairly see-through. Look, scraping on, you can still see all the tree trunks sticking through that. Don't want much. Just a little bit of canopy cutting the top in. There. Now, back to my round brush, and I'm going to darken some areas here and there in the distance, just with Payne's Grey again. And back into here. A few bits down here. Just touching in a few strokes here and there. Just emphasises the base of those trees as they come down to all the undergrowth down there in the distance. There. Now I want a little bit of Naples yellow in here to start with. Across there, look. Stippling on with the corner of the brush as it comes up into the foliage. Just a little bit of light coming through the trees there. And again, stroke in. Now back to my round brush again. And to the opposite side of where I've just touched up with all the dark stuff, I'm going to touch up with a little bit of light stuff. There. Isn't that simple? Now to foreground. What I'm doing to start with, like I said, this is not so much a path as a grassy track. So I'm going to put the first layer of grasses down the centre there. Again, raw sienna and hooker's green. And I'm just popping that on there. Because I'm going to have two lots of grass, two different colours of grass, sorry. I'll just pop that in first, and then let that dry a second before I go in with the next lot. There, and that's where the understain comes in as well, leaving that shining through. Now a little bit of raw umber. Squiggly line, look. And that's fairly haphazardly just dabbed in. And as I say, I need to let that dry now, and then it's time for big bits of foreground grasses. There. Now, like I said, back to the foreground grasses. So again, I've got hooker's green and raw sienna. A lot of raw sienna into that. And I'm going to have several depths of colour for the grass. Starting off with the raw sienna and hooker's green. And just dabbing on, look. Leaving the underwash showing through here and there. And again a little bit of that over here. And a bit into that yellow there. I was going to cover that blue then, but I quite like it, so I'll leave it. Bit there. And now it all really starts to come together once you get the track in the foreground, taking you into the distance. Coming up to where I put the first wash of light green on. Now, hooker's green and burnt sienna. That's a darker green. Quite a lot of burnt sienna in there. Look. This time, as I put on, I'm flicking up a little bit here and there as well. Get a bit more roughness to the grass. There. See? Push in, flick up. And just dabbing. And here and there, flicking. And again over here. And you notice I'm using every part of my brush, look, using the flat bit, flicking up. Corner for dabbing, and the side as well. Use every bit of your brush. Brush technique, because I only use 4 brushes, you can experiment quite a lot with each brush. You get lots of different techniques. Now, a little bit of Payne's Grey, just Payne's Grey. There. The red wine stroke. Handshake's better with red wine. And again, flick. Bit of that over here as well. Tap. Squiggle the brush around a little bit. And flick. Now a little bit of that colour down here as well. That Payne's Grey. But this time I'm mixing it into the green. A few bits of that down here. Sorry about the noise in the background. The gardener's just arrived. That's the strimmer. A few touches here and there. And again, still with that same mix. Dab on a bit here and there as well, look. Giving a bit of roughness to that. Just tapping with the sharp of the brush. And a little bit of dark for the turn there, as the grass track goes off round to the right. Now, a few bits of Naples yellow. Actually, before that, I'm just going to tap a little bit here and there. Didn't like that little bit, so I'm just tapping. It's better. There. Now, Naples yellow. And I'll have a few bits of light coming through here and there. Now that's very effective. Like all effective techniques, people go, oh, that's good, I'll have some more of that. And you end up with no grass left, just a load of yellow. So be careful with your effective techniques. Now again, tap. Now one thing to do with this now, which is put some dark shadow in to finish the thing off. And so again, just slosh that brush out well. Sorry about the noise. Again, Payne's Grey and Violent Violet, more commonly known as Deep Violet. All I'm doing, touch the base of the tree, look, there, like that. And then bring it down and across. And again, touch the base of the tree and across. And a couple of little bits here and there. Just dabbing on at the edge there. A few bits coming up here. Then a few bits here. There. Darkening that foreground look. And that makes the most as well of the light bits that I put on earlier on. And there we go. Another finished painting. And suddenly the help's arrived. Frank, come and take a look. This is Frank and Bert. Frank, wait. Good boys. Good boys. They've come just too late to see the painting. Well, that's it. All done. Nice and strong. An acrylic is a good strong medium. Or it can be weak if you want, but I prefer strength when I'm painting with them. Almost like an oil painting. And the portrait format definitely works on this one. So have a go. It's not that difficult, and it's only 4 brushes, like I said. 1.5 inch flat, 3/4 inch flat, number 8 round, and my number 4 rigger. That's it. That's all the brushes I use, and the same brushes that I use for my watercolours as well. The acrylics I'm using, System 3, they're really not expensive paints. They're worth having a go with. And they're quite big tubes. These are, I think they're £2.70 a tube on my website. Everything that I use is on the website, charlesevans.com. System 3 acrylics, they really are lovely paints. Got a yummy texture to them. And if you've got no idea where to start with your acrylics, that book, which is already a bestseller worldwide, according to my publishers, that just starts from the very beginning. And there's tracing in them if you want to trace. They're all there just ready to be pulled out. I'm not going to pull them out. They're all ready just to be unfolded, all the tracings, and all the stage-by-stage projects. It's all in there. Starts from the beginning through some fairly complex paintings. But it's well worth having a look at. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.